So Sheryl Swoopes has said quite a lot of things. About the Indiana Fever. And they've just all been wrong.
Is not happy the Indiana Fever just pulled off one of the biggest offseason moves in WNBA history. They've stacked their roster with elite talent. And it's all built around Caitlin Clark. But here's where it gets interesting. Swoopes has been publicly doubting Indiana for months. She claimed no star player would want to sign there. She insisted Clark would struggle. Now those words have come back to haunt her. In this video, we're breaking down why Swoopes is furious, how the Fever proved her wrong, and what this means for the WNBA's future. Let's get into it. Made up. Sheryl Swoopes literally made up that there was locker room drama in the Indiana Fever, and all they're talking about is the vets have said to Kelly Krauskopf, and Sheryl Swoopes has been one of the most vocal critics of the Indiana Fever's off-season moves, and now, after their latest signings, she is absolutely furious. For months, she's been saying that Caitlin Clark wouldn't attract top-tier talent, that Indiana wasn't a desirable destination, and that no star would want to play alongside her. But reality has hit hard because the Fever just went out and stacked their roster with some of the best players in the league, and now Swoopes' words are being used against her. For a while it seemed like she was determined to paint a picture of Indiana as a team no one would want to join. She repeatedly said that Clark's arrival wasn't going to fix anything, that the Fever were still a mess, and that free agents wouldn't be lining up to play there. But guess what? That narrative has been completely shattered. One by one, top players have committed to Indiana, forming what looks like a true contender, and Swoopes is not handling it well. She initially tried to discredit the Fever's efforts, downplaying the impact of their signings. But when players like DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, and Sydney Colson started signing, the league took notice. The Fever didn't just add talent, they added experience, leadership, and a winning mentality. These weren't just role players looking for a paycheck. These were veterans who had won championships, played in high-stakes games, and knew exactly what it took to compete at the highest level. And that's where things get really interesting. Swoopes spent months claiming that Indiana had no shot at signing elite players. She said the locker room was toxic, that Caitlin Clark would struggle to earn her teammates' respect, and that Indiana simply wasn't a destination franchise. But when you look at what actually happened, it's the complete opposite. The Fever built their team around Clark, and they're making it clear that they want to win now. Let's talk about DeWanna Bonner for a second. She's not just a good player, she's one of the most respected veterans in the WNBA. She's been to the finals, she's won titles, and she knows exactly what it takes to get there. Signing with the Fever wasn't just about money, it was about believing in what they're building, and that says a lot, because when a veteran like Bonner sees potential in a team, it means something real is happening. Then there's Natasha Howard, another massive addition. She brings elite defense, rebounding, and the ability to stretch the floor. She fits perfectly with the way the Fever want to play, and she knows how to win. She's played for championship teams, and she understands the kind of effort and mentality required to compete for a title. And let's not forget Sydney Colson. She might not be a superstar in terms of stats, but her impact goes beyond the numbers. She's a leader, a defensive specialist, and one of the best locker room presences in the entire league. When a team wants to build culture, a player like Colson is exactly who you want, and now Indiana has all these pieces fitting together perfectly. But what really stings for Swoopes is that this completely destroys everything she's been saying. She tried so hard to push the idea that Caitlin Clark wouldn't be able to attract star players, that she'd struggle to gain the trust of her teammates, and that the Fever would remain a bottom-tier franchise. Instead, they're turning into one of the most dangerous teams in the WNBA, and everyone is taking notice. Even Clark herself has been vocal about how excited she is to play alongside these veterans. She's talked about how much she respects their experience, how much she's looking forward to learning from them, and how she believes this team has everything it needs to compete at a high level. And let's be real, this kind of roster building doesn't just happen by accident. The Fever's front office had a clear plan, and they executed it flawlessly. It's not just about getting good players, it's about getting the right players. The Fever could have gone after younger and proven talent, but instead they focused on experience, leadership, and defense. They wanted players who could help Clark adjust to the WNBA, who could guide the young core, and who knew how to handle the pressure of being on a contending team. And they nailed it. The reaction from fans has been incredible. Fever fans are hyped, and for good reason. This isn't just about Caitlin Clark anymore. This is about building a team that can win championships, and the fact that these veteran players are choosing to play in Indiana. If you like the video, then like the video and subscribe to the channel. Completely flips the script on everything that's been said about the team. But let's not forget about the people who aren't happy. Specifically Sheryl Swoopes, because she's not just frustrated, she's livid. She's been vocal about how she feels about the Fever's moves, and it's clear she's struggling to accept that she was completely wrong. She tried to undermine Indiana's reputation, but the players themselves proved her wrong, and that's what's really driving her reaction, because at the end of the day, players don't listen to media narratives. They talk to each other, they know where they want to go based on real experiences, not just what someone on the outside is saying, and right now the word around the league is that Indiana is building something special. So where does this leave Swoopes? Well, she could admit she was wrong, acknowledge that Indiana actually did attract elite talent, and give credit where it's due, but instead she's doubling down. She's still pushing the idea that the Fever aren't contenders, that they're overhyping their signings, and that this team won't live up to expectations. But at this point, it's getting harder and harder to take her seriously, because the reality is clear. The Fever are for real. They've built a roster that can compete, they've stacked their team with experience, and they've surrounded Caitlin Clark with the best possible players to help her succeed. And if the early reactions from WNBA analysts are any indication, this team is about to shock a lot of people. The season hasn't even started yet, but one thing is obvious. Indiana is coming, and they're coming fast. They're not just trying to be competitive, they're trying to win it all. And no matter how much certain people might try to downplay it, the truth is right in front of us. The Fever aren't just back, they might be stronger than ever, and now the rest of the league has no choice but to pay attention, because with the talent they've assembled, the chemistry they're building, and the momentum they've gained, Indiana Fever isn't just another team anymore. They're a legitimate threat, and for Sheryl Swoopes, that's the one thing she never wanted to admit. The Indiana Fever's transformation into a powerhouse isn't just about stacking talent, it's about changing the narrative. For years, this was a team struggling to find its identity. They were at the bottom of the league trying to rebuild, but lacking the pieces to truly compete. Now, in just a short span of time, they've gone from being overlooked to becoming one of the most talked about teams in the WNBA, and that's why this story has become so polarizing. Sheryl Swoopes and those who doubted Indiana are watching all of this unfold with a mix of disbelief and frustration. They spent months insisting that no stars would join Caitlin Clark, that the team wasn't an attractive destination, and that the Fever were bound to fail. But reality has proven otherwise. One by one, veteran players have chosen to be part of this project, and that completely dismantles everything Swoopes has been preaching. The arrival of DeWanna Bonner is particularly significant. She's a multi-time All-Star, a proven winner, and a respected veteran in the league. Her decision to join Indiana sends a loud message: this team is for real. Bonner had options. She could have stayed where she was comfortable or chased a championship elsewhere. Instead, she saw something in this team, in this city, in this moment. That speaks volumes. Then there's Natasha Howard, another veteran who's been through deep playoff runs and knows what it takes to win. Her addition strengthens Indiana's defense, something they desperately needed. Thank you so much. Subscribe to the channel.